Continuing with this media engagements, and these are for candidates that's vying for positions for the National Youth Parliament. And this is an engagement by the Ministry of Youth within the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and certainly we'll be vying to participate in what is going to be our first ever national youth election. And just to give you some feedback, this one is offering young people age 16 to 35, so I'm totally out of that, not even by any stretch of the imagination, to be a chance to vote for who they want to represent them at the National Youth Parliament for the next 2 years. I'm rather excited. And with me this afternoon, I've got Mr. Williams, Akeem Williams, and Melissa Julian, and she's representing the town of St. George, and Mr. Williams, St. George's Northeast. My dear lady and sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, I probably won't ask the question, but why? Why? There's so many things that young people can get involved in. Go study, write a book, do something. Youth Parliament. Lady Julian, why?
I joined a youth parliament initially to enhance my public speaking skills, because when I'm talking one-on-one to a person, I do very well, but to a crowd, I used to get scared all the time. I'm nervous right now, actually, but I found coping skills, So I joined to improve. So we did impromptu, we did our actual speech, and I find, I am improving. So that was my purpose. But while doing the whole process, I became passionate about helping the youths. So here I am today as a candidate, and I'm very proud to represent my constituency.
And I'm smiling because you said passion, and in anything we do, there's passion, need passion. And as though to further accentuate the fact that you need passion, the tone of the voice changed. Mm-hmm. She closed her eyes and she's like, it's as though she is visualizing herself in the youth parliament,
definitely
representing her people. And it is important, though. It's important. But you talked about when you started off, and sometimes that's the way life is. We get into a race and not realizing where to from here. You said you're nervous all now.
Yes.
How do you deal with the nervousness? Because I often... You're praying, God, please help me through pray doesn't ask me a hard question. Oh, that's
right.
Akeem, what about you?
So it's a story I like to tell. I believe my community raised me. I grew up with a single parent mother who was considered mentally unstable, and I grew up for quite a great portion of my life having sometimes to walk from New Hampshire to town because the buses just really refused to pick her up. And as a young person, I've seen how the community pulled together to help me. Because of being in a place where sometimes it can feel as though you're overlooked, and because of your situation that there's nothing good is going to come from that situation, I have thus seen myself now, and I ask myself all the time, how many persons are we overlooking in our society? I'm a nutritionist today who has been able to pour back into my community and help people who have given me that help up the road. And when I do presentations, one of the things I say to persons is, in 20 years ago, you couldn't have looked and tell that this is where I would have been now. And we see so many young people on our streets. We see so many people overlooked, but it's opportunity and it's not provided for them. We don't actually understood what the destiny is. We don't know if that's a neurosurgeon, that's someone going to do that who will save us. We don't know that's a doctor, that's a lawyer. We don't know who these people are going to be to put us where we need to be as a country. And so I am doing this because I think, one, we need to be able to show persons that look like us, from communities like us, that we can succeed nevertheless, but also to be able to advocate for some of the issues that are causing that breakdown in the community. I've realized that it appears as though as a country we're moving away from community and we're becoming so individualistic rather, that we are villages of houses but we're no longer community. I happen to believe in the adage that it takes a community to raise a child, and so yesterday I met with a principal of a preschool, and she was saying to me, we always say it begins at the home, but interestingly, after a parent takes the great opportunity to pour discipline to their children and they put them out in the community, in the environment with other persons who may not take the same interests, what's happening to that child? And so someone once said that if you don't change your environment, it is bound to change you. And so I'm joining this program because I think we have to promote our culture. We have to promote the things that made us Grenadians, and we have to find a way to get to that place.
Interesting. It takes a community to raise a child. I believe that holistically, if any community, if it first starts at home with the family,
Yeah.
if the family is broken, believe me, while there is yet hope,
Yeah.
the task becomes much grander.
Yeah.
Melissa, so Akeem made a reference to wanting to give back. He made reference to wanting to change the life of the individuals within his community. What are some of those issues for you that you've seen that affects the lives of young people that you want to be a part of?
Okay, so for me, while campaigning, I discovered that there is a stigma in certain communities in the tongue of St. George. So I would like to change that. They are saying that they are not included in recreational activities. They're not included in skill training programs because whenever people see the villages or so on, they are just overlooked. So I want to change that because I believe everyone deserves a chance. Children also drop out of school following a pattern. So someone needs to break the cycle. So I need them to see that everything they are doing in school is important. So let us break the cycle.
But while we talk about the cycle, I mean, we often hear the outcry that young people, they've chided for that they tend not to have vision. They tend just to grow up wantonly, and they just say, "Que sera, sera," whatever would be.
Well, while campaigning, I didn't meet any young man or woman with that mentality. A lot of them asked for programs to train them with entrepreneurship, and I was quite happy because I wasn't looking for it. Everybody, they want to do a skill to work for somebody, but I met some, they want to have their own business, and I think we are moving in a positive direction.
Do you then get the sense, Akeem, because is the adults that's misunderstanding, and I guess that's a function of the age differences, the generation gap?
I think so. I think it's important to appreciate that we want different things in life. I think having been in a place where I didn't always know what I wanted, what I did know is that I did want to be successful, and having gone through secondary school, and secondary school is a place, and this is where the education system is so important. And so we see a system where students can go through a system and not be pushed. Yes, we have career activities, but not be pushed in a way to develop vision and passion in people. And so I don't think there's a young person on the face of the earth who doesn't want to aspire for something great. And so sometimes what the challenge is, what are the keys to get there? What are the mechanisms? And this is where we have some of the big challenge. So sometimes we look at people who are adults, and sometimes when we look at them and we look at the life we want to have, we see a disconnect, and we say, okay, well, maybe that's not the life I want. And sometimes we know we're not always able to model it. And so I think, again, this is why it's really, really important for us to be able to promote community and to promote a culture and an environment where we can have those things being modeled in the society.
There's a lot that needs to be changed.
Yes.
When we grew up, you grew up 50, 30, 40 years ago when you're in school, you envisioned first going to school.
Yeah.
Gets an education. She went to primary school, secondary.
Right.
Then they say to you, go to college,
Right.
then go to university.
Right.
And then you think about,
Right.
instead of young people, because of the opportunities that are available, the world becoming such an enclosed place, that they don't go through that lengthy thought process. They know they want to succeed, but for them, it's not about sitting in a classroom, and more so that the education they think is failing them, so they opt in otherwise.
I agree. And so is it in school? I think sometimes we can blame our parents, but I think our parents may have to bear some responsibility. We're not blaming them, but we just understand what it is. And so I remember my story, Joseph. It was 2009 common entrance, and I did the exam, and my mom said to me, Akeem, I don't want you to go to secondary school, and she said to me, because I didn't have the money to send you. And so she was coming from a place that she didn't go to secondary school, and people can only give you what they have. And so she didn't understand the value. she didn't see that there was opportunities available. And even now I could say, I said, Mom, here's what, look what I happened to in the secondary school and I've passed this stage. How many of our parents, and I know we have a culture where parents tend to say, okay, well, you finish school, you're big, now go and work. And we also have to address in terms of educating our population, because that's what they've been taught. And so even if they've gotten to that place, how many of our young persons who've been through the system and who've actually done well, but who've actually have not found a place for themselves in society? And then we have those who might have gone through the system, and as a nutritionist now I understand this, whether they may not have had the needs met, they may not have been adequately nourished, and they just may not have been able to respond well in the classroom. And so if that happens to you at Form 1, whether it's food insecurity, it's affecting your ability to learn, you can go through an entire system, not realizing that the root cause is that you do not have the functional capacity. But if you go through the system and no one takes time to investigate what is the actual issue, we can have students going through a system thinking that they can't learn, they do not have the capacity, and then they go onto the street with those who are going to accept them and say, become a part of us.
It's interesting you say that an entrepreneur that runs a business, he probably wouldn't mind a Rebelicious Burger. I heard a story he told me years ago, when he was at school. He was identified as being one of the individuals most likely.
Right.
He's at the top of the list to fail.
Wow.
And I see you, Melissa, your eyes pop. And there in sometimes resides the problem.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the community programs that you're involved in now, because you talk about it being part of the community, getting involved in young people. What are some of the activities that you're involved in now that is geared towards targeting those young people and highlighting their concerns?
So for me, I am in Catholic Youth for Christ. So as I said, Catholic, so it's just for Roman Catholics. But on a wider scale, I am involved in PAN, Republic Bank Angel Hubs.
Okay.
So we target any age. So you can come from as low as 7 to whenever. So for me, I'm quite impressed in the amount of young men that we actually have playing PAN, because young men, they tend to stray a bit, especially when they meet bad company. But we have them, playing PAN. And even while in the PAN house, I look at those boys from the Carnage and Canteen Terrace and so on, and they come to football practice and so on in the pasture right there. And as I said before, I think we are moving in a positive direction.
I realize you tried very hard coming from Republic Bank. You that mentioned, right? Not to make mention of the boys in Tantin, exactly who. I love the way that you skillfully navigated around it. And she went from PAN to football because she did it deliberately. You have in fact learned a few things, right? So let's get into the campaign, because campaigning, change comes by consistency, not just a one-off message.
Right.
You said that the young people, they have needs. Let's talk about, we've highlighted the need for education, but I'm one that often advocates that education, that we need to have reformation of our education system, because I think our system is generally it's inclined to appreciate persons that are academically inclined. Do you agree with that? And how do you see yourself? What kind of activities you see in sort of changing that stigma?
So I agree with that fully, because we know that not everyone learns the same way, and there are children in the public schools, private schools, with, let's say, learning disabilities, and you cannot teach a child with a learning disability like how you would teach a normal child. And I think identifying those children would make it a lot more easier. As Akim said, once we identify the problem, then it will be okay, because a child can go through the system thinking, well, I cannot learn, I will forever fail. However, it's the way that we are teaching them that's causing them to fail and so on. So I think at times we have to take the blame for it. So I would say with the whole inclusive education, finding different activities that would appeal to the different learning styles, and I think we will be okay.
I was just about to ask you whether or not whether or not you think the whole conversation about universal education, whether or not it helps to accentuate that challenge of just pushing children through and not necessarily helping to identify their needs from a very early age.
I agree. I'm a strong advocate for people meeting the requirement, and because you don't meet the requirement doesn't mean that we push you through. We have to find it, because to me it's lazy, and it's easy to push you through and then to not care. But then again, I think if everyone looks at every child in the classroom, seeing the potential of who that person could be, not for the society, but let's be a little selfish sometimes. How can that person help me in the future? How do you sit and consider that? And so I went to the University of Southern Caribbean, and I would never forget Ms. Dolores. Ms. Dolores taught in the Family and Consumer Sciences department, primarily sewing and those kind of clothing construction. And she said to me something, and I know sometimes we say that young people are not academically inclined, and sometimes I personally beg to differ. And I think they have the potential. I think sometimes we don't spend time to discover how they learn. However, even if you have the skill, there comes a time, and she said it to us, and I didn't understand it, but I understand it now. There comes a time that even when you're doing the technical skills, you have to understand the theory at some point to be excellent in that field. And so if you look at North America, and we look at those people who are skilled, they also have the technical knowledge. And so I think the larger conversation, the question is, how do we cater to those needs? I mean, I went to the Greater Boys Secondary School, but I also had social challenges. And there are a lot of students who would succeed from that school, but as a student, it didn't cater to my needs. However, after failing and having to transfer, I went to J.W. Fletcher, then I went to TMRC Community College, then I went to the University of Southern Caribbean to do a science degree. This is what you call, this is academically inclined. It was chemistry. I didn't do chemistry for CXC, but I aced my chemistry classes at TAMCC. And so the conversation is, I didn't realize I had the ability till it happened to me. And so how, again, if it happens to me, how many persons like me are in that very same situation, not even understanding what is the actual capacity that they have?
And I guess, Melissa, the challenge is getting these young people to understand and appreciate, I'm not a failure.
Yeah, yes. At all.
I'm not a failure. Would you
Absolutely
agree?
not.
Yes, I would agree, definitely. Because some children, even the parents too, or even friends, just because they don't understand it when you try it out in class for the first time, they would make fun. You cannot learn, you're stupid, and they're being called all these names, and eventually they start to believe it. So they just give up. Like you said, it is what it is. But if we get to figure out, okay, so I just showed the child on the board, so we need to get manipulatives to show the child, and everything will be okay, then that will solve the issue.
I mean, certainly there's a lot that needs to be done. Melissa, let's look at the challenges that young women would face. Are they any way different, the challenges it is, from the male? I know one of the growing issues there is the consumption of alcohol. What are some of the other issues among those that you see young women having to participate in, and you realizing, wow, the landscape has changed from 20, 30 years ago?
So, years ago, walking the streets, especially in town or the Grand Anse area, so basically crowded areas, I wouldn't see young ladies smoking easily. But now, they just do it anywhere.
That happens, really?
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes, all the time.
I must be living somewhere else.
I see it all the time. And back then, I didn't used to see it. Maybe they used to do it inside, but now they smoke in the open. And I don't like to see it personally, but it's people's preference. So I feel like we need to divert away from smoking in public.
Oh, do you get a sense, though, Akeem, that those individuals, male or on whichever side of the coin, they follow these trends as a measure of trying to fit in, because they've been told for so long you are worthless, you have no value. They decide, you know what, eventually, you know what, Zafir, if you say, I'm just going to follow the trend because you say that.
I like to use the example of a cat or a dog. If your owner has a cat or a dog and they mistreat that animal so much, another neighbor decides to offer that cat and be consistent and show up for that particular animal, we see the difference. I think that when it comes to human behavior, I think that's a challenge we have. And so we don't have a society, and in the community, someone said it to me. So from New Hampshire, and I remember the days of Teacher Louise and those people who took the DVBS and took the Methodist Sunday school classes and who would bring you out to different programs, and they took the responsibility without being rewarded or anything to pour into young people so that people understand that no matter who you are, you have worth and you have value. And so after that generation, it appears as though that mantle was not taken up. Someone in the community said it to me, and it had me thinking, what if that's the actual case? And so what we have seen is that over these we've seen a dynamic shift. We have seen a dynamic shift where the people who promoted our cultural values, they've died. And at the same time, we have seen a mass marketing of an American culture and lifestyle through the media, but also through our family members who go abroad and who come back home and who make it appear as though the Grenadian culture is somehow subservient or less to the American culture. And so I, for one, am someone who does not support that. I think we must go and we must benefit, but we must also realize our culture is important. And I'm saying this because I think when it comes to understanding what people gravitate to, we have seen that dynamic shift in the society. And because of that, if my culture is now no longer appreciated me, the people who are there and who are there to pour and say, no, you're doing well, and guess what? There are people who we're looking up to. I remember when I was growing up, there were young fellas who I would look up to, and the reality is that we do not know who's looking up to us. And so if they're not getting that positive reinforcement from us because they're looking at us as that model, then they're going to go by those who are going to say to them and who's going to present that facade, whether it's in the music, whether it's in the TikTok, whether it's in the Facebook. And so I believe that we have to once more get back to a place. We may have to find a different method of doing it, but we have to be able to incentivize community growth and promoting and encouraging our culture and our values.
So you have identified those challenges.
Yes.
We have identified them. And I often say, if you look at young people, the reason why they join groups or gangs, because even when they get into those groups and those gangs, the very said people you think have no values, all of a sudden they get into a gang and they follow the letter of the law.
Correct.
They get into the gang and the gang says to them, you have to do this to prove your worth, and you always hear them talking about respect.
Right.
I want respect.
Yeah.
Respect. So now that we've identified it, you talk about the community involvement, but how, Melissa, we've identified we want to go into the community, but what exactly do you plan? Let's assume for the purpose of the election that I'm 16. Yeah?
Okay.
We're gonna play pretend for now.
Okay, gotcha.
I want to vote you.
Right.
I want to vote. Let's just pretend for that I'm 16. That's a hard one to solve. What do you envision if you become a youth parliamentarian? Are some of the programs you would want to initiate to address those concerns that we have identified?
Okay, so when elected, I would like to start a program helping children to do their homework, because we know not every parent has the time or not every parent is able to. So helping with the homework, sometimes when children get the help, then they are motivated to do the homework. So I want to start a program definitely to help with homework. Community inclusiveness. Now, that's what I want to, basically advocate for, and togetherness. Now, when campaigning in my community, I realized they were saying the community had no life. Everybody is for themselves. Nobody is saying good morning. They're passing right by you. They're not saying good morning. And, selfish, basically. But I believe that the community should be one. as Akim said earlier, the community has to raise a child. So if we bring back this initiative, then I think it would be a better place. So togetherness for sure. So maybe little sports on a Sunday evening, or maybe we can make a netball team with the young ladies. We can do something.
I just want to say for the record, the challenge of persons not saying good morning is not the children's fault.
No,
it's not. Absolutely not.
Definitely.
It's absolutely
A
not.
child would most likely be the one, if they meet you in a public place, to say good morning.
Yes.
And even if I grew up in a culture, and I grew up old school, and I have no problem. So I bridge the generation a little bit, and I grew up in a culture where I pass, and like I said, my community raised me, and I grew up in a culture where if I passed them and I forgot, someone would remind me, and that is in me. So if I pass through my community, or I pass through any community, and I see a young person and they're walking by me, you bet your button I am going to initiate the good afternoon. And if you don't say so, we were campaigning actually, and it happened, and I'm saying no, but we have to set the standard because somebody did it for us.
I think would you agree very often the challenge to get to the young people is not that they don't want to change, but it's the methodology that is used, Melissa, to get to them. Normally our first instinct is to hit them over the head.
Yep.
So for me, while campaigning, I also told him I think that the youths will understand the youths.
Yeah.
This is why I am here, because I understand, because the gap from the senior politicians is very big, and they're not culturalized as we are. So if we get to communicate there, the communication is there already because we passed around talking to different people. If a youth talking to a youth, then we know definitely, okay, don't hit them. Just speak to them firm, or just say, listen, talk to them really calm, and that will solve the issue.
It's interesting you said there was a day I was listening to I heard some young people speaking, and then I heard my son use the expression, "Yeah, dog." And believe me, I had a difficult time on trying to appreciate.
Right.
How is it you can be talking to each other? I prefer to the term dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I went to when I asked him, and he's on the phone. Yeah, dog. And I'm like, come. What are you talking about? You're opening a farm? What is this? Are you in vet school? You're veterinarian now? And he's saying to me, Daddy, that's the way we communicate.
Right.
And what you said, it's important that we understand and be able to meet the young person
where they are.
Correct. That is
100%.
Do you think that's one of the failures, especially with politicians, mainstream politicians?
Yes.
They create this facade, and the young people, as soon as they see them, they start thinking, sorry.
So I wouldn't call a name, but I was in a certain area at a certain time at a certain place, and we sat in a certain event, and the event I was attending, the host of the event went up in a bit of a rage and disappointment, I'll say, because as we were in the event, we realized a quote unquote minister passed by the area and didn't say hello, put a glass up. And I think we must remember, when I signed up to be a community nutritionist, I had to understand the responsibility that was going to come with it. And so as a community nutritionist, I know I'm in the community, and there are many times outside of doing a specific task, my clients would meet me, Mr. Williams in the street, and he would ask me a question, but I understood that this is what it takes to get the change that you want. And we must first understand that we are making a difference in people's life. No one whole hell going to my head and say, hey, become a nutritionist. But when I sign up for the responsibility, I think it's important that we don't create those barriers, because then it means that we cannot relate. And so when we're advocating, quote unquote, for the needs of young people, it means that we're going to coming from a place of that is not relatable.
So someone is out there, they're asking themselves, why, Melissa? Why should I vote for you? All others, they have failed, be it mainstream politics. Why should I take stuff off of my busy schedule and think that you're just another person?
Well, they ask me, numerous persons ask me, and my response is always, I need to be the change that I need to see. So if I am the change, if I model the change, then we will get there. I will earn people's trust, because when I went knocking on doors, most of them, no politics, no green, no yellow.
Yes, so we had to put a disclaimer out very early in the game. In the pitch, we had to put it in. Okay, this is no green or yellow. This is not partisan politics. We had to.
We really had to. So I had to take my time and explain. This is just youth parliament. It's not associated with any administration, but I am here to make a difference. You know, I just feel like the youths matter, and I wouldn't say never heard, but barely heard. So I want them to be heard all the time. Okay, so if we need a loudspeaker, we will use it. The inclusion is necessary because I grew up, my mother grew me up, okay, you are not better than anybody and nobody is better than you. So you need to humble yourself. So I think if we have a lot of togetherness, then all this misunderstanding in the communities wouldn't take place.
I mean, you said misunderstanding. I'm smiling because I think very often, not just among young people, but I think many of the challenges in life is that of communication.
Big.
And because we probably misunderstand. So why is Russia invading Ukraine? Why is that happening? What really are the underlying factors?
Yeah.
Is it just power? What about power that makes you think that you need to take away from somebody else in order to achieve what you want to achieve?
And that's my very strong belief. And I say to persons, I think we're losing the fundamental understanding of being civic minded. And so I understand and appreciate that we all live in a society and we somehow have an informal agreement that we must all enjoy the very same rights. And so not because you make a little bit more money or you may have access to a gun means that gives you a superiority over me. And so I think we have to be able to teach that way everybody in the society must enjoy equally the benefits of the society. And so until we can find ourselves in that place, then we're going to have a significant challenge.
And it's interesting, what you're advocating now isn't a new philosophy.
It's not a new philosophy.
Because the ancient Greeks, they believed that every individual had a social contract. And it didn't matter the way the society was structured. It didn't matter whether, if I was an artisan, you or whatever, you were a nutritionist, Melissa is a seamstress. What is it that they taught each other? You have a responsibility and you need to fulfill your responsibility. If you're going to be a nutritionist, be the best that you can be. You're going to be a seamstress, be the best. And they taught society that everyone has a part to play.
And I'll say, I think yesterday's example of that told us a wonderful lesson. And if we don't learn it, we will never learn it. I think yesterday showed us how in small individual decisions made by individual people within the society affected everyone. And I have grown to accept that my decision may not affect me now, but it's going to affect me later because our destinies is always tied to the destinies of others. And so I like to say that if we have to fix our society, we must first fix the fabric of our community, and we have to fight for it aggressively. We have to be able to incentivize what may have worked before may not necessarily work now, but the system of it worked. And so I say sometimes we look at Carnival, for instance. Carnival is a festival, a part of the larger Grenadian culture. But we understand as a society, for it to work, we couldn't leave it up to everybody to decide to just plan Carnival, because it wouldn't be what it is today. And so today we have to understand as a society, and that's one of the things that I want to lobby for, and I want to work with some of my colleagues who are also campaigning, because I think this is not a Northeast thing, but this is an island-wide thing. We have to advocate for where it's community community councils that are not partisan politics. We have to remove it, because at the end of the day, when the politics is over, the community still remains. And if we bring the politics into the fabric of the community, then we realize that we're going to go farther and farther apart.
And it's interesting when the political season has ended. the communities, the families,
Yeah.
they go back to living their lives
Correct.
just the way that we did before.
Yeah.
So now that we've gotten their attention,
Yeah.
voting ends. Let's take you through the process of voting, registration, and all of that.
All right, so registration ends on the 22nd of November. That's next week, Friday. So we only have about a few days. And so we have posters going around on social media, and there's a link on our Facebook pages. So if you're within the tongue of St. George, you're within the Northeast constituency like I am, I want to encourage you to look at our social media pages and to see our posters. We have codes that you can scan, and it's going to take you to the page. Registration is really, really easy. It literally takes you less than 4 minutes to get registered. But I want to encourage young people, because this is as a new thing, and for the very first time it is a start to us having the opportunity to have our say. We are putting ourselves up to try. We may not get everything right, we may not get together, but we are trying, because we believe that if you do absolutely nothing, if you sat back and we live the way we're living, we being in our own house, as my life, I live in how I want, forget about everybody else, we will see a situation where in 10 years we will not want to live in our communities. And I'm remembering a story of Trinidad, and I've been telling through the campaign as I'm going on in the community. Just a few feet away from my aunt's house, there was a gentleman who was living in his house, and we didn't realize that man passed away until 3 days after when we saw flies coming through the window. This is not a Grenadian thing, and I am afraid that if everyone holds that decision, micro decision, affecting everybody else, that this is where we're going to get to if we do nothing.
Pushing that philosophy, where do you get a greater pushback from? Is it from the young people or from the adults?
We haven't gotten any pushback, I would say. And quite interestingly, we realize that there are persons in our community who actually wants to have the conversation. And so the town hall thing seems to work, because people actually want to be heard, even if sometimes what they say may not necessarily go, but people want to contribute to the society. So we believe you have to create a system, you have to create people to manage, oversee, supervise the system for it to work.
So Melissa, you guys have actually been able to get young people to come off that digital little god they have and come out and listen?
Yes, definitely. They want to listen, and that's why I said that the youths will understand the youth. They saw young people, and talking to one, the others coming, they flocking around. They want to find out, what are we talking about?
Well, I'm interested. How you got them to put those devices down?
Because keeping in mind, you see, once you understand that every person in the society wants to succeed and wants to be their best self, it's about really trying to show them how can we help meet your need. And that's how societies has functioned from time immemorial, whether it's sociological need and Maslow's hierarchy of need. And at every point, and we mentioned it before, with the young people going into, because we have failed to meet their need, and so they're going to those who are meeting it. We have to go back to a needs-based culture where we're meeting the needs of persons in our community.
So how do we deal with the divide? We're in a digital age, and I guess what you're saying, I'm getting the sense that it isn't that young people want to be separated, but if my friends are on social media, they understand me, why not go there?
That's what they are.
But sometimes we have to realize that addiction to social media is becoming a problem. Is that a concern? Are you concerned about that? And how do you plan, Melissa, to address that? They can't. Well, not just they. We just can't seem to get up of it.
I feel like if they have something interesting, something that they want to be a part of, like an extracurricular activity or something, then they will get off the device. Because when I am in the pan house, nobody can get a hold of me. Nobody, because I am in my zone. That is my thing. So if they explore, they find a passion for a sport or maybe a craft or something. If they find it and they develop their passion for it, then the social media will not be a problem. They will only use it to advertise their work.
I encourage you to take a pass in an afternoon on a bus terminal and look at our young people. They pay an actual close look, and you'll realize there's an engagement. Some may be on the phone, but they're fully engaged in the conversation and the thing that they're interested in and the things that they want to talk about. And so it really has to go back and understanding that they have come into a generation where the activities have become less, and they were given an alternative where there was nothing provided.
I often say it's not that the activities have gotten less. The activities has evolved.
Okay.
So whereas we went outside pitch marbles, play morale, hopscotch, and all of this stuff.
Right.
You watching me? That's what I'm talking about. They have been birthed into, and I often say it, when they were born, they're children of the 90s.
Yeah.
They were born sitting in mommy's lap, daddy's lap, and mommy and daddy has a laptop.
Right.
Because mommy and daddy is probably at a MUI
Right.
doing an extra class. That's what they know. And we applaud them when at 2 and 3 they were able to move the mouse and not realizing them
The impact.
the impact that is going to happen them 27, 16, 15 years later. And it is, in fact, it is very interesting.
But you know what's also interesting, and I'll say this. I remember in our communities there are people who would take your children and look after them. You wouldn't call them functional daycares, but there are people who understood the interest.
Right.
Whether it's the Sunday school program, again, whether it was the community activities, and there were people that parents trusted to leave their children with. They are no longer here. I'll say that, and I'll leave it there for now.
We're going to leave that there because that's a Pandora's box we're about to open. Because I will tell you openly, I leave my child with nobody.
Yep.
And let's talk about aspirations. I mean, we were talking about the youth parliament itself. When you get in there, though, I mean, as a collective grouping, have you guys sat down together, those of you that's campaigning, and say to yourself, once we get in there, this is a campaigning time now,
Right.
but you've actually thought to yourself, 2 years to serve.
Yeah.
But it's as a grouping now, because now it's more competitive.
Yeah.
But you've sat down to look at the bigger picture as to how do you plan to truly represent for the next, once elected for that 2 years.
Well, not thoroughly, but
I like the honesty.
Yeah, true.
I've been doing some thinking, and as I said, I want to focus on togetherness. So, if the reviver comes out in the road again, I want to organize maybe a cleanup campaign or something where we can go and actually help.
I don't want to ever come out to the road again.
That's all right.
I know, but something that we can engage in, something positive, always positive. I don't want to be a politician, as I said.
Okay.
Yes.
That's an interesting disclaimer.
As I said, I joined for public speaking, and then I developed a passion for helping other young people. So after the program, maybe if the Lord permits me, maybe I can go, let's say, a leadership program or something, because I think leading is my role. I want to be a leader, but not a politician.
I can see you in a nice HR role. She'll be one of those HR leaders when you come. She'll say, Joseph, sit down. Take a breather. Take a breather. Are you okay? Can I offer you a glass of water?
I can see it. Definitely.
And she's going to say, talk to me. Tell me what is bothering you.
Yes, definitely.
Nice and calmly.
Nice and calmly. So, but listen, politics, mainstream politics as it is on for you. Akeem, is this a footstep to?
I don't know. I don't know. People have asked in the community, but I am a believer. I don't know where life is going to take me, but I'm going to take it one day at a time. I do believe that if you have a vision and you think you can contribute to the society, because every one of us has it, we sometimes have to be able to tap into it. I think the only way you can truly make a difference is to have a seat at the table. And so when it came to me doing nutrition, I had to realize that I had to now move away from being passive. And what I saw as being one of the bigger issues across the population was people not understanding the value of it, and I had to take a more aggressive approach and get involved, because you're not going to get the change that you want to see. And so I like the story brighten the corner where you are, but also to be that change that you want. Because if you have it, sometimes you're the only person who can see the society in that way, because you have the perspective. God gave it to you, and it's valuable. But if you are not able to put it out there, it's not going to get there.
That is in fact so true. And the reality is we find ourselves in situations not realizing how it helps to mold us.
Yeah.
We talked to Melissa about leadership.
Yeah.
Being a part of this youth parliament may just be that golden opportunity that allows you to sit here calmly and deal with your nervousness.
Right.
Yeah, deal with it. And you may not then realize that you may not necessarily be a politician,
Yeah.
but you may have a senior position, an executive position in a company 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And you have to go to conferences and you have
Yeah.
to deliver.
Yeah.
And even if it's not in politics, but it may be in a field where you have to speak to the public. And then you have to stand in front of a mass audience.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, now I can appreciate, or even as part of the youth parliament,
Yeah.
it will teach you the ability to just work in with people,
Yeah.
work with people. But outside of that, when it's all said and done, what to from here for you in your personal capacity? What's next?
Well, I'm not sure actually, because let's say every 2 years my career goal changes. Right now I would like to be a lawyer, but 2 years ago I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. So I did courses for both, and I think I'm heading in the direction of a lawyer. However, I think that field is very competitive, so maybe I might try social psychology.
Nice. Very good.
And you may realize you work in a company with social psychologists and they need lawyers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because most companies
Yeah.
do have the firms, they have lawyers that represent
It's a
them.
good blend.
So it is a perfect blend.
Yeah.
It's not the everyday blend.
Yeah.
But you just never know.
Yeah.
And you think about it, that may just be something like a good way to get young people to think
Yeah.
actively. Make use of hay.
agreed.
Make hay while the sun is shining.
Yeah.
Because you never know
True.
what you've learned today.
Yeah.
Where it's going to take you tomorrow.
100%.
Akeem, nutritionist. You going into youth parliament? What's on the horizon?
So after youth parliament, I am not 100% sure. I see medicine somewhere in the future. I've always wanted to be in healthcare because I think it's a good way to help support those in the society who have the calling, and to be able to get to wherever you want to go. It's about how can I help you solve those problems? How can I help you break the barriers? And so as a nutritionist, that's one of the skills that I've had to learn, is because every client is going to come into your office, into your session with a different need, with a different challenge, and it forces you to think outside of the box as to how can I find a solution that fits the root cause of your actual issue. And so it is that skill, I think, and my ability to be able to look at things from the broader picture, because sometimes clients would come and they would say, my cholesterol is high, and automatically they say, well, eating too much egg. And then when I say to them, all right, no, there is no evidence that egg raises cholesterol, they're shocked. And I'm saying, no, that's when we talk about nutrition and health. There is always a bigger picture. And so in the society as well, I think there's always a bigger picture. I do not want to be the conventional nutritionist that the world has seen. I think we're in an age where no, we should not restrict ourselves. I can practice nutrition, but I don't only have to be a nutritionist. There is so much areas and so much things that I think that I can contribute to the world, and I want to be able to explore those because it helps me meet the needs. I have realized something. I have realized that every person who is remembered today in any country, in any place, gave and contributed and met needs in the society. And that's what I aspire to.
The next thing we know, we probably be watching, we sit in, let's say, watching basketball and then realize that these big sports clubs, they do need nutritionists.
Of course.
So you may just close your office here and you move to Manchester United.
Let's see.
And we start thinking, but I know this guy. I know this guy. And then you're probably thinking, okay, we leave that and we move to, let's say, we're still in one of those bigger countries, or maybe even in Jamaica where they have these active sports program, and you do realize that you need your players to be mentally focused.
Correct.
And you need somebody that sits with them, talk to them, and keep them mentally. Maybe the West Indies, maybe that's what the West Indies need.
Listen.
Yeah, somebody needs to get mentally focused. And so listen, you have a match tomorrow for the love of God.
Yeah.
Folks, this is all good things must come to an end. It's exactly 2 minutes gone past the hour of 4 o'clock. I was speaking here with Akeem Williams and Melissa Julian. Akeem vying for a position in St. George's Northeast, and Melissa campaigning for the town of St. George. I want to wish the both of you all the success that there is.
Thank you very much.
And keep in mind, I want to remind you, and know that you know it, that whether you get into the youth parliament or not, we are still part.
Yes.
We are still
Correct.
Agents of change.
100%.
And let's hold on to that
Yes, please.
prophetically.
Yes, please. Yes.
We hold on to that prophetically. For those of you listening to television, we say thanks for being part of the Conversation Radio. We're going to send you back. We're going to go back to regular programming. Until then, I always say to you, live life and love life. Treat each day as though it's your last day on planet Earth. Yesterday, around this time, we were in a quandary. Here we are 24 hours later. I was on radio yesterday and my tone was nothing like this. Live each day as though it's your last day on planet Earth. And you sleep, you awake, and realize you're still here. I suggest you find that divine purpose and you start living all over again. JC loves you. Have yourself a great one. Grenada, get ready to celebrate the magic of the season with Christmas with GBN. Starting November 4th, join us weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN Television.